waiting all day for the first 10 or 15 minutes of my program today because I was told and I was conversed with that I was going to have a chance to talk with a gentleman with the nickname of the Godfather of Whiskey. And if you ever have a chance to talk with somebody named the Godfather of Whiskey, how could you not A, jump at that chance, and B, get all excited about it? I mean, my goodness gracious. Folks, welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Mike McFeely Show on the mighty 790 KFGO. And in studio, we have the aforementioned Godfather of Whiskey. His name is Dan Tullio. Is that correct?
Tullio.
Tullio.
Right,
I'm sorry. I should get
Mike,
it right.
Shut up and get in a trunk. It's great to be here.
Now you're scaring me, Godfather.
No, don't worry about it.
You come in with the striped suit and the tie and the black leather, and you got me scared. Dan is with a Canadian club whiskey, and he's in town to do a couple different things, and he had a chance to stop by the studio. It's very nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you as well.
We're having a conversation off the air, and you were giving me the inside dope on all the different whiskeys and what it means, and the blends, and the tradition, and the innovation. I'll be honest with you, I had no idea that whiskey was that, shaded in different subtleties.
There's a variety of different styles of whiskey. Of course, here in the great country of the United States, it's American bourbon, there's Scottish whiskey, Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey. In every country that we produce our own indigenous style of whiskey, we have to follow certain rules and regulations. A lot of people ask me, Dan, how would you describe Canadian club whiskey? And I would say that, it's a bit lighter than a Scotch and a bit smoother than a bourbon. And in making whiskey, if you modify the type of grains, the type of barrel that it ages in, and the length of time, you end up with a different style whiskey. But predominantly Canadian whiskey, Canadian club, it has to be made in Canada. Has to be aged for a minimum of 3 years in small wood. Please note, I didn't say brand new wood. So we Canadians, similar to the Irish and Scottish, purchase once used white oak American bourbon barrels. The folks the guys and gals down south in bourbon country, they have to use brand new wood every time. That's one of the rules and regulations, as well as 51% corn. But we prefer the once used white oak American bourbon barrels for two reasons. Number one, they're at a much better price point. That means that we Canadians are cheap. But then secondly, and most importantly, is that we like the softer spices on a second use barrel versus the aggressive oakiness that it delivers to the liquid the first time that it's used.
So what does this mean if I taste a whiskey, for example, and I take a little sip of it and I swish it around in my mouth and I enjoy the full flavor whiskey? What do all those things mean to me and to my palate?
The type of aromas that you're going to get are caramel, butterscotch, vanilla, and this all comes from the wood. And needless to say, the newer the barrel, the more of those solids are imparted to the liquid during that maturation period. And then the other point is the length of time in a barrel. The older the better. That's why I put all that gray stuff in my hair this morning.
Is that why I've lost all my hair? Older the better?
Yes. It works both ways. So the aromas, the texture, the softness, the creaminess, the different flavors such as butterscotch, caramel, vanilla, all come to us from the barrels.
What's your background? How did you get the title of Godfather of Whiskey? It sounds like a lifelong passion for you.
Mike, it's a great nickname, but I get asked for favors all the time. You know what I mean? But I've been at the distillery for a number of years. I graduated out of university and I started at the facility in Walkerville, Ontario, Canada. The distillery was built by our founding father, Hiram Walker, back in 1858. And I had the great fortune of starting with the company 33 years ago, and I worked in different disciplines within, marketing, sales, production. So have a little bit of knowledge about the industry and, how we're able to properly blend, learn the craft that previous master blenders have brought forward, and of course, me and my team, we want to carry that legend forward for another 155 years.
This is going to be a really naive question. You're going to look at me cross-eyed when I ask it, but we think of wines as being these artisans who make wines, and there's different flavors and bouquets of wine, and craft beers now have become a big thing among people who like to have a bump every now and again. It sounds a lot like whiskey is the same way. To the seasoned palate, to the veteran experienced people who know what they're looking for, Canadian Club offers a lot of different things and a lot of different flavors.
We have a variety of different brands, within our portfolio, a number of different marks. But you take a company like ours, like we have sister brands such as Sauza Tequila and Maker's Mark Bourbon and Jim Beam Canadian Club. For centuries, we've grown and evolved, and we understand barrels. We understand the location that they're placed in. We understand the type of grains that are used that deliver different flavor profiles. So we are in the craft business, even though we're a multi-million case brand. Each one of those that I have mentioned, but the way forward, there is a bit of history and heritage, and then there's innovation, and coming up with these new brands entails the knowledge that we've all learned over the last couple of 100 years for our brands.
Did you say multi-million barrel? Cases, multi-million cases. How many cases?
Canadian Club is about a 2 million case brand. Jim Beam Bourbon, about 5 million cases. So these are large global brands. The Jim Beam portfolio, there are 25 different brands within that. So for example, there's Knob Creek, Basil Hayden, a number of them, Red Stag. So to come up with and evolve with these new innovative brands, you have to have a good base and knowledge of the brand that you have, so that you can come forward with new variants of it. This week I'm over here in North Dakota, and I'm promoting our small batch series for Canadian Club, and these are brands that have what I would call innovation in process. Our Classic 12, for example, is not Canadian Club aged for an additional 7 years. It is, in fact, a 12-year-old brand, but it has a higher percentage of barley malt in it. And barley is a type of grain that produces a very smooth, soft, velvety style whiskey. Great for a Manhattan.
Canadian Club has kind of that cool factor going, right? I've only seen a couple episodes of Mad Men, but am I mistaken here, or have I seen Canadian Club in Mad Men?
Yeah, Mad Men, the HBO, Don Draper, Mad Men, it's on there. It's very much alive and well. Also, for example, on the HBO series Boardwalk Empire. So, from a marketing perspective, we're targeting a younger consumer and, getting them engaged. And we've also got a brand for these younger consumers so that we can connect the two dots. And the one brand is called Doc 57. And basically it's a regular Canadian Club at 80 proof. And just before it goes down the bottling line, we infuse it by using natural blackberry flavors. And it's quite nice and elegant. And this is just perfect for a young, emerging consumer transitioning from beer and want to begin experimenting in the whiskey world. I
know you're on a tight schedule, so I have one last question for you. How do you drink your Canadian Club, and do you have a drink suggestion for people who want to try something different or something that you just enjoy?
Mike, it really does depend on the occasion. For example, on a Saturday night at home with my friends, their wives, we're watching a hockey game. It's typically in a tall glass. We fill it up with ice, a couple of measure Canadian Club, +1, and a lot of my friends like it with either good quality cola. I like it with ginger ale. When we're at a bar, we're at a pub, we're gonna have a shot and a beer, just straight up with a beautiful lager or a pilsner. At a nice, elegant restaurant, I really like Manhattans, and we've got a signature cocktail, which is one of my favorite, using Classic 12, which recently won a double gold. It's called the Millionaire's Manhattan. Elegant lowball glass, jam it up with ice. Ice keeps ice cold. Don't be afraid to put a lot of ice in a glass. Couple of measures of Classic 12 by Canadian Club. And then instead of using sweet vermouth, consider putting in Harvey's Bristol Cream Sherry. The viscosity of the sherry as well as Classic 12 really do mingle well together. Garnish it with a couple of maraschino cherries, and then take an orange rind and just zest it over the glass so that all of those oils fall on it. My mouth is watering right now.
That sounds far too classy for me, but
No, it's quite easy. I mean, Canadian Club plus one. That's the way I like to promote the brand. The regular brand plus your favorite mixer. Summertime's coming around. At home, around the pool, we have friends, neighbors come over. It's great with cranberry juice or iced tea. The tannins in the iced tea and the cranberry juice really do mingle well with Canadian Club, and it's very refreshing as well.
You have a cool job, man. You get to go around and talk about Canadian Club whiskey. That's a pretty cool job. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud of the brand. And Mike, I have to tell you one more thing.
Yes, sir.
You can't spell success without CC.
Oh, look at you. Look at you. Folks, it's the Godfather of Whiskey Canadian Club here on the Mike McFeely Show. I am way behind on my break. We need to run. Pinto's going to throw something at me. Hopefully it's that bottle that's sitting next to him. No, I'll catch you if you throw it. Don't throw it. I'll catch that. Oh, throw it during the break. This is the Mike McFeely Show on the mighty 790 KFGO.